Welcome to Of the People with Robert Chernin and Ericka Redic. I'm your guest host today, Jay Shepard. Robert was looking for someone to come in and co-host the show. He couldn't find anyone good, so he went to me, knowing that I could talk for an hour and make a little bit of sense, and hopefully he'll stay with us. Robert is somewhere in the world, espousing the exceptionalism of America and what it means to be an American and how we need to revert back to our roots. And the one thing I wanted to talk to you today about and to get the show started was over the weekend, we celebrated Easter, where those of us who believe in the resurrection of Jesus were involved in praying and in church going and all of those. And during the weekend, the White House decided they would have an Easter egg roll to celebrate Easter. Well, I think those of us who know what Easter is know that it's not about the Easter bunny. It's not about eggs. It's not about rolling, even though there's some within our faith goes back to the importance of what eggs are and what the rabbit means and the bunnies mean. But one of the things that troubled me very much at that point was when he decided to send out a invitation for the children to draw paintings and have artwork. And on it says, make sure there is nothing on it with religious symbols or any overtly religious themes. So we're going to have Easter, but we're going to tell the children there better not be any religious themes in all of this. And it got me to thinking about what's important and what is the foundation of our government? What is America made of, and why is it the greatest country in the history of the world? And it comes back to our Constitution was based on natural law. And there's a lot of questions about what natural law is. And one of the themes that's really important is if we take a look at the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights, there was some argument over the Bill of Rights and what it meant. And it was pointing out those rights and their natural rights based on natural law. But one of the places that we tend not to look at is the Ninth Amendment. And one of the important things about the Ninth Amendment is, I'll read it directly to you. The Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So we spend a lot of time talking about the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment, the right of free speech, the right of religion, religious liberty. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms will not be infringed. But the argument was that if we laid out what our rights are, it will never be a full list. And what the Ninth Amendment did is it stated very clearly that it is much more than just the previous rights, the Bill of Rights, that we have rights that are enabled by our Creator. And it looks more as a reflection of our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And, I've done a lot of research and a lot of reading regarding what natural law is and how it applies. But, I'm kind of stealing some of the things from David Stedman and Lavon Lewis, who some of the things that they talked about makes it very clear and clarifies exactly what natural law is. And they start off by talking about William Blackstone. And he was an eminent jurist in England. And he went back to even the Magna Carta of 1215 and how it talked about inalienable rights. And one of his quotes that's very important says, man must necessarily be subject to the laws of his creator. This will of his maker is called the law of nature. This law of nature is, of course, superior to any other. No human laws are of any validity if contrary to this. And such of them are valid derivative, all of their force from the original. And what the founders did not establish the Constitution for the purpose of granting rights. Rather, they established this government of laws, not a law of government. It's not a law of men, in order to secure each person's creator-endowed rights to life, liberty, and property. Only in America did a nation's founders recognize that rights endowed by the Creator as unalienable prerogatives would not be sustained in society unless they were protected under a code of law which was itself in harmony with a higher law. they called it natural law. We're talking about going back to basic things like the Ten Commandments. We're talking about thou shalt not kill. They called it natural law, and such law is the ultimate source and establishment limit for all of man's laws, and is intended to protect each of those natural rights for all of mankind. So the Declaration of Independence in 76 established the premise that in America, a people might assume the station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. Herein lies the security of men's individual rights, an immutable code of law sanctioned by the creator of man's rights, and designed to promote, preserve, and protect him and his fellows in the enjoyment of their rights. Our founders, and if you look over my shoulder, you'll see James Madison, who was the author of the Constitution, and they believed that such natural law revealed a man through his reason was capable of being understood by both the plowman and the professor. And, you know, Blackstone had some interesting writers. And one of the things that he was a founder and he trained America's lawyers. And one of the things he said, for as God, when he created matter and endued it with a principle of mobility, established certain rules for the direction of that motion. So when he created man and endued him with free will to conduct himself in all parts of life, he laid down certain immutable laws of human nature, whereby that free will is in some degree regulated and restrained, and gave him also the faculty of reason to discover the purpose of those laws. And so, you know, you talk about what are those laws, and Blackstone talked about such among others are these principles that we should live honestly, should hurt no one, and should render to everyone his due. You know, even Thomas Jefferson, in one of his quotes, said, "Man has been subjected by his creator to the moral law, of which his feelings or conscience, as it is sometimes called, are evidence with which his creator has furnished him. The moral duties which exist between individual and individual in a state of nature accompany them into a state of society, their maker not having released them from the duties on their forming themselves into a nation." So one of the things that we take from all of this is that man's law is not something that we have to follow. You know, man's law, when we look back at what Stalin was doing in the Soviet Union and what Hitler was doing, man was making laws. You know, it's a way for us to come together. And, you know, America's Constitution is the culmination of the best reasoning of men of all time and is based on the most profound and beneficial values mankind has been able to fathom. You know, it is the most beautiful and wonderful work ever. And it struck off at a given time of brain and purpose of man. We should dedicate ourselves to rediscovering and preserving an understanding of our Constitution, basis in natural law for the protection of natural rights, principles which have provided American citizens with more protection for individual rights while guaranteeing more freedom than any people on earth. And John Locke said, "The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom." We need to take a look at some of the laws that are out there and whether or not we want to preserve them. We want to make sure that just because man-made law, the right to abortion, for instance, does not mean it is right and we have to follow it. It is natural law that overrides what our Creator gave us: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.